Hi folks, welcome to part 6 of How to Get an Academic Job. I'm Tom, I'm from New Zealand, that's all you need to know about me, as if that isn't endorsement enough. So we're going to talk about how not to become this guy, and today we're focusing on how to prepare for interviews, what might happen to you at the interview and all that kind of stuff. And I can tell you this is really my favourite part of the talk, and because I've fucked up interviews in so many different ways. It's amazing. I just really have a massive capacity for getting them wrong. So hopefully this will be helpful for you all. I'm going to talk about these things, the process of the interview, of how it's formulated, the actual interview, other issues, I've got a category called other, it's very organised of me, sourcing information, negotiations, and your hard feelings. Yep, there's a lot of them in academia, so we're going to talk about them at the end. Okay, so the process. A group of people together have agreed that there's a need for a new employee in their unit, and a position description is gradually created in a process of negotiation, conflict, compromise. It's horrible. Eventually, this position description is attached to a job advertisement, which gets circulated more or less widely depending on the budget and energies of people. A selection committee is formed. These may not necessarily be the same people who have created the position description. Various interventions may have been made, and now it's been reformulated because various people in different other positions are taking more or less interest in who's hired. Applications are due. People submit their applications. The selection committee looks through all the applications and they create a shortlist. And then they have the first round of interviews and they recommend a candidate if possible. Right? So it's a pretty long and drawn out process. And hopefully at the end there'll be a candidate that's recommended. And I'm going to concentrate on, being one of the candidates that gets an interview is like what I'm trying to help you do here, because I can't help you beyond that, right? Once you've got an interview, you get to be in front of some people and you have a chance to convince them that you should have a job. And that's really the goal, because that's a kind of moment that can go either way. So, interviews in my experiences tend to be full of very, very standard questions with, possible subtleties and nuance, but generally speaking, they're highly regulated situations, and also a lot of the time the people that are involved in the selection committee aren't that on top of all of the rules for what you can and can't do, and because they aren't like experts on hiring people, they're often being very, very careful to play it by the book and stick to the rules exactly. So they aren't going to throw you a curveball unless they're throwing a curveball to all of the candidates. Like, everyone's going to get asked pretty much exactly the same questions in exactly the same way. So the questions become this kind of general way for you to, recapitulate information that you've already given them, but also maybe supply a little bit more on personal level. So, like one question, for example, which would be very standard is, why should we hire you? How will you fit in around here kind of question. What are your research plans would be another one. Do you have a teaching philosophy? Tell us about a difficult situation that you had in the classroom. How do you deal with students? Are you someone who kind of handles things in a normal and reasonable way, or are you some weird extremist jerk? That's the trick that they're trying to trap you into, is to showing that you're a jerk. So, that's easy for most people because you're not one. You're just maybe unfamiliar with how that might be dealt with. How would you recruit and supervise postgraduate students? How you handle administration in relation to the demands of teaching and research? What kind of courses would you like to teach? Now, these are all kind of very stock standard, and I guess that they're probing you to kind of see what kind of things that you say, in the hope that potentially you say something great so that they can start to think that they might hire you, or even in the hope that you'll say something terrible so they can eliminate you, and or argue that you should be eliminated and hire the candidate that they prefer. So they also might do a thing where they offer you a chance to ask questions, and it's considered to be apparently a terrible faux pas to not have a question if you have any questions. So make sure that you've like researched a couple of like questions that you can ask to have there in case you get asked that. I'd say like kind of looking at the the kind of research interests or the kind of little things that are happening around the unit or whatever, and asking about the opportunities you'd have to be involved in things like that would probably be a pretty good safe bet. So, look at me, right? So I'm saying wear interview clothes, right? So, what are interview clothes? Look, this is an area where I really can't help you ladies, I mean, female academic colleagues really have a difficult time here, and I tremble kind of when I think about the kind of challenges that you have in deciding what to wear. Like, am I going to wear a shawl with a crazy old brooch, or who the fuck knows? And I'm sorry I can't help with that. I'm having difficulty even dealing with what men have to wear in interviews, which is just a fucking suit, which is easy as fuck, really. But suits are kind of complicated, and ties are complicated. But what you need to do, I mean, you don't have to wear a suit, you don't have to wear a tie. You need to show that you've tried to go up a step towards wearing professional clothes. And I'd say suits safe bet, tie no tie can go either way. I've definitely been anecdotally, I've been told by people years afterwards, that I didn't get jobs because I wasn't wearing a tie, because I was considered to be too informal and insulting or whatever to the very professionally dressed section committee. No grudges, but it's never bad to be too formal, I suppose. I mean, the other thing is I'm not wearing that garb every day. This is my normal garb. Like that stuff, it gets busted out on laundry day, and it gets busted out when I got job interviews and shit. So I'm wearing that thing 5-6 times a year, that suit of mine. So one of the things which is real important is that you check your interview clothes a couple of days before the interview, because you might need to get that shit dry cleaned. You might have a big coffee stain on your shirt, or some kind of weird crusty stuff on your sleeve. You don't want that. You want to be, you want to know that your clothes are on point. And I'd recommend that you've worn them a few times beforehand so that you're feeling comfortable in them. Right, and I mean, then there's the whole phone interview thing. People do get jobs off phone interviews. I have in the past been offered jobs from phone interviews. Phone interviews are kind of weird. My suggestion is that because people aren't there, there's no it's less easy to convey affect. So have a mirror and make sure that when you answer questions you smile a little bit, because that changes the tone of your voice when you're smiling, and you sound more enthusiastic and affective, right? And then Skype interviews, you have that same kind of problem, you're looking at yourself in the corner because you just oh yeah, do I look like a weird freak that's waving their arms about and hunched over and whatever. You're trying to regulate yourself instead of paying attention to the people that you should be talking to. So make sure that you're looking at them, and pay attention to the kind of lighting and background issues that you've got. I'm hanging out in some kind of mad professor's office with all these crazy books, right? So I look like I'm pretty rad that I've read them all. I never read any of these books. I don't know what they are. Torch them all, I say. Well, not really, but have something nice behind you, not distracting. And make eye contact with people while you're talking if you can. I mean, this is a general kind of interview thing. You'll have maybe 6 people at the interview, and they're all going to ask you individual questions, right? 1 or 2 questions, or people will take turns asking you questions. Don't address your answer to that person, address the answer to everyone around the table. And remember that interviews are chances to network. You get to meet people, get to meet people you might not otherwise meet, and you get a chance to impress people, and people will be impressed with you even if you don't get the job. Often there's not 100% agreement about who's the best candidate, and you might have been the best candidate in somebody's eyes. Or even like, wow, I'm really interested in that person's work, but they aren't right for this position. Right? That kind of vibe. So you get to meet people, and that's good. Senior people. Okay, some other issues. So one of the things that this very rarely happens, you might be asked to give a research talk or a teaching demo, or you might be asked to do a combination of a research talk and a teaching demo, which is like, not fun. But anyway, what I'm recommending for these things is like usually they're going to be pretty short, or they could be long. Like you might be allocated an hour, like say 40 minutes to do it, 20 minutes for questions, or you might only be allocated like 10 or 20 minutes. Just really depends on how much people can be bothered disrupting their day, whether they really care about hearing about something detailed, or whether they're just kind of seeing if you know how to talk in front of people. Who knows? Like each part of an interview is a kind of opportunity, but usually the thing with research talks and teaching demos is that they'll be open to more people than just the selection committee, and so you'll have a chance to maybe meet and get questions from the wider faculty, school, centre, whatever that you're applying for, and people will be able to like kind of convey to the selection committee who they thought was a good candidate or a desirable candidate or the best candidate. So it's a very important part of the process. But at the same time, not something that's always offered. Often it's just an interview. So if you've got a research talk and teaching demo, make sure that you've got a printed version of your talk so that when PowerPoints don't work, you don't have to like stand around for 5 minutes while they call fucking technician and the technician comes and fucks around the computer for a while and all that kind of shit. That you've got it printed out already for yourself and you can just go for it. Because actually they might fuck with the technology deliberately just to see how you handle it. Because probably half the time at their university the technology is broken anyway, so you need to be able to handle it if you're going to be a teacher or be giving a presentation anyhow. Right? So expect that to happen for real. Right? And also, have it on a USB already as well, just in case someone whips out their own, computer to plug into the system and you've got it there. Right, so one of the things that can happen is you can also be assigned to meet with various people, sometimes in semi-formal kind of meetings like coffees and whatever. Right, so have some kind of bullshit elevator pitchy kind of thing to talk about yourself and your research and all that kind of stuff, just to get them going, like so that they've got something to ask you questions about. And another thing that really weirdly can happen is that you can be put in some kind of weird Hunger Games situation with the other candidates where you all have to go to dinner together with the department, or you all have to hang out in the same room during the day. So this is like a really important kind of thing to not let yourself get psyched out about. Like actually you can meet really cool people through this process, and I've met some really great people who are now I would consider like close friends and interlocutors through them being another candidate on a job that I was also applying for and meeting them that way. Like just don't get intimidated by it. Everyone has to go for jobs if they want one, and you're going to be going up against the people that you're going to be going against for jobs will often have very similar research interests to you, and should be someone that you're able to find common interest with and relate to. It's not surprising. So when you find out that you've got an interview, you need to do a little bit of an investigation about what's going on in that situation. And when I say get the dirt, I don't mean that necessarily find out all of the horrible secrets about everyone. What I mean is just find out what the hell's going on there. Like, who are your potential new colleagues? Are you given some kind of information about who's going to be on the interview panel? Who are they? Do you when you look at their profile and look at their publications, stuff like that, are they like, whoa, these people seem fucking cool? Or are they, whatever, and I'm not saying that whatever people are bad people. What I mean is that, you know, are these people that kind of like you think, wow, these are inspiring research colleagues to have around me. You know, these are people that are doing amazing things, amazing teaching, amazing engagement, whatever. Do you have mutual research interests? Is there anyone that you'd love to be mentored by, in the sense that they're like a really established senior scholar which has, you know, work which relates to yours that would be amazing to kind of learn about their stuff? And okay, so you know what's going on in the department, school, what's going on in the unit that's going to hire you. Is there a new head? Is there a new restructure? You know, what's going on? What's the situation? How did the position emerge? Is someone retired and they've been replaced? Someone left and they've been replaced? Do you know if actually what's happened is there's now 200 new students in that area, so they're growing, and the reason why the new hire is from growth? Just getting that information, if possible, helps you to understand what's going on and how you fit in there. Right, so this is a bit controversial, I guess. Sometimes you do get offered the job, and I say, like, never accept a job without negotiating. When I say negotiating, I'm not like, okay, necessarily like, no, you have to pay me more. For one example would be like, make sure that you at least find out how often you're going to get your computer upgraded. Like, some universities don't want to upgrade your computer for every 5 years. So if you're someone like me that's working with, like, you know, technology, you're like, look, I'm going to need my computer upgraded every 2 years. Is that going to be a problem for you at this kind of stage, right? Now, it's true. Once they have made an offer, usually the offer's on a scale like with about 30 grand in increments, where it's variable, and universities can afford to pay you more than they're offering you. It's just, do they want to, you know, do they want to do that, and do they think that they could get someone else to work for less or the same amount? But you know, when they're given authority to hire a person, they're given scope to pay quite a wide band of salary, and the difference can be, like, say in level B, the difference can be between like 80 grand and 110 grand. But you know, to make a case to get 110 grand, you'd really have to mount a really good, you know, argument in favor of yourself about why you should be that level. And remember, just because someone offers you a job, you don't have to accept it. We're all capitalists, baby. We're out for ourselves. But you shouldn't turn them down in a way that makes them feel rejected. You should like really, really, really want to come and really want to work with them and want to be friends with them. But you just can't do that job for this reason. And I mean, people would say, like, look, if you can't do the job, why did you apply for it? But it's a case where this whole process is about you putting out feelers about, do you want to work with them, and them putting out feelers about, do they want to work with you? The idea that it's just like they're kind of picking who gets to do the job is like, okay, in effect, maybe that's the reality, but you know, the whole process is about like you finding the right fit for you and them finding the right fit for them, and you're both free agents and everything's decided by a contract and blah blah blah, right? So you don't have to say yes. You aren't obliged to say yes just because you put an interest in the job. Maybe after the interview you're like, those people are a bunch of fuckwads, I'd never want to work with them, right? Maybe that's what you think, you're not saying that. And I don't think that about any of the interviews I've ever had. I love you guys. So, now we're into the point about, you know, the hard feelings. And this is like very, very important. And it's very important. I'll say it again. Don't take things personally. In your life in academia, there's going to be a lot of rejections at all levels. You're going to get rejected for publication, you're going to get rejected for grants, you're going to get rejected for jobs, you're going to get rejected for awards, you're going to get rejected for all kinds of shit I haven't even thought of. So, one thing, never get yourself in a situation where you have to get that one job. Right? That one job, it's too high stakes. Create a position where there's a number of jobs, or there's always jobs you can go for. Now, this isn't an ideal world. I realize that some people are bound by time or space or whatever to a particular location, but really this is what will be your ultimate holding you back from getting a job, will be inflexibility about where you're willing to work. Even just saying I will work anywhere in Australia increases your job's prospects so enormously, and then thinking I will work anywhere in the world who's willing to have me as a teacher because they teach in English, for example, that's even massively increasing the scope of your prospects. So the other thing is like, don't get needy, right? It's like you know, they don't call back sometimes. You just figure out eventually that they aren't that into you. And it's normal not to hear back. It's normal to even have an interview and to not hear back for months that you didn't get the job, maybe ever. I'm still waiting to hear back from some interviews I've had about whether I got the job or not, where like the person that they offered the job to has already left that job years ago. And like, you got to recognize that maybe the people in the search criteria don't have much control around the official relations that you have with HR when you're applying and all that kind of stuff. So don't get all bitter at them. Just like take it, you know, like, and respect the people who have put an effort into creating a process which notifies you that you haven't got the job. You're also very unlikely to get feedback in any way at all. And so if you do get feedback, this is something that you should genuinely respect and recognize as a favor. And like, anyone who's willing and capable of giving feedback to job candidates who don't make the grade in terms of a job is a legend in my eyes, and I respect them. Okay, so remember that people have a very particular vision of what they want that position to be, and this position, while particular, is often created out of a weird conflict negotiation kind of situation within the search committee. And while you might not get the job, everyone might have thought you were great, but just not for the job as they've decided that it is. Or some of the people might have thought you were the best, but other people didn't, and they decided to go for someone else. No big deal, right? The fact that you even got an interview at all is great, and hopefully the people who you were interviewed by do consider you horrible, but just maybe not the most horrible. And remember, it's not that people think that you're bad, but they just thought someone else was better for what they envisioned the job to be. Now, in all these rejections, I guess that somewhere along the line you do have to acknowledge that you can get the message, like in the sense that you do have to maybe stop applying at certain institutions after you've been rejected from jobs multiple times at that institution. Until, of course, you see that there's a new head of school or a restructure or something. Like, people can just like decide that you're not right for them. You know, like you're some kind of bogany New Zealand guy that doesn't shave that often, and they just like, not sure if we want that around. We're kind of more prissy Downtown Abbey tea drinking kind of types. You know how it is. That's right, they know what they like. I wouldn't be happy there. I wouldn't want to work with people that don't want to work with me. Of course, that's an easy thing to say if you've got a nice job already. But it would suck to go and work with people that didn't like or respect or whatever you. Right, so that's the end, and this is me. Feel free to contact me if you've got any questions, or I'd also welcome feedback on these videos. I'd appreciate it. I hope that you found them helpful.